Welcome back, I'm Tedward, and today on this picture-perfect spring day, thanks to Bond Group in Waltham, Massachusetts, we're driving the 1992 Mercedes-Benz 500e. This is maybe my favorite or my second favorite sports sedan of all time. The Hammer has a special place in my heart. They did make a four-door Hammer. But even as a BMW enthusiast, I have to pay my great respects to the 500e, both with its performance, its design, and its story. Because one of the coolest things about this car is that it was actually built in collaboration with Porsche. Mercedes did not have the width on their assembly line to manage the wide front track of this 500e when they came time to build. So they actually had to ship it off to the Porsche factory down the street, and it returned back and forth a couple of times and took 18 days to build each one of these 500es. Now the W124 had been out for a little while. Bruno Sacco had designed this, and it's easy to look back in time and see this as one of the greatest car designs of all time, because not only does it have this sort of blocky, timeless shape, it's also incredibly slippery. This has a drag coefficient of about 0.26, and you'd never know it from looking at it. But when you start to stare at all the little lines around the car, you do start to see that a great amount of care was put into its shape. Now, this is a great example of when constraint meets creativity, because at this point, Lexus is entering the game with the LS400. They're putting the Germans on notice. They've got cheaper cars with reliable V8s, they're comfortable, and this is merely a small sedan, but it's technologically superior to most. Not the least of which is because of what lies under the hood. This is the 5-liter naturally aspirated M119 engine. This V8 we saw in the R129. It's got juice. It's got 320 horsepower, about 350 pound-feet of torque, and it can give this little sports sedan quite a shove down the road, up to its top speed of 155 or 156 miles an hour rather. But that is actually mechanically limited because you'd have to change the gearing if you'd like it to go faster, and I'm sure it would. Now the reason it's so wide is they had to put SL suspension components in it, and this was originally designed to be an inline six. All the W124s were smaller powertrains, so to put this wide V8 and fit in all of the suspension components meant this had to come out about 2 inches, and that's why they had to work with Porsche, who was struggling financially and probably very happy to work with Mercedes-Benz, who was going to cut nice big fat checks regularly to build the roughly 10,000 of these 500es. In the rear, it has a self-leveling hydraulic suspension and a ton of boot space. But again, as you walk around the vehicle, this is where you start to notice all of the sort of trapezoidal shapes of this car. We can pop this to a cavernous trunk space. It's really big. There's a full-size spare back here, but there's also battery box in here. And apparently, from what I've learned from Jason Camisa, this is the only piece of Porsche in the car. Everything else is Mercedes. So it's all Mercedes parts, just built on the 959 assembly line. In addition to being a wonderful designer, Bruno Sacco is famously into safety, and I think that's what contributes to the bank vault-like doors. And then inside ultra luxury, we've got 4 Recaro seats. So even the rears, there's no middle seat in the back. You've got these just 2 outboard seats and an armrest in the middle. Now, these guys, these headrests, will flip up, and when we get driving, I'll show you how those flip down, because if you need more visibility, there's a button up there that'll just knock them down. Get a first aid kit right here, gluing us to the road on these gorgeous 18-inch AMG wheels. The originals are back at Bond Group. Is a 255 section tire all around on a Michelin Pilot Sport 4S. So imagine 1992 handling, but now you've got modern 2020s rubber. I'm very excited to drive this today. Another great feature is the mono wiper. This covered an immense amount of the windscreen, so this actually hops up twice as it's wiping. But let's get driving. And if you stayed for the whole intro, a little tidbit about this car. This has 16,684 original miles. We're going to stack a few more on today. This car was originally owned by Jerry Seinfeld, and it was sold to Steve Serio at Bond Group. So this has been Steve's personal car for quite some time now, but it's always nice to get in a properly sorted Seinfeld car. To start the 500e, we've got our right side ignition. A very familiar sound in these old Mercedes. Now, if you'll notice, the wing mirrors are a little different on each side. That's more of a square design. This is a different shape. And I can reach the adjustment on this one. I can't reach an adjustment on that one. So there is this right here in the middle. And this is only designed to control that mirror because it can't be reached. There is no glove box, probably because these airbags were quite large back in the day. And we have this perfect, simple dashboard, and there are no cracks, which is always a joy. 2 modes on the sunroof. Forgot this was a time before automatic sunroofs. And as promised, I'll show you the rear headrest going down with this button. We hold that. And with a thump, they are down. There's also a rear sunshade. I'm sure it works. I'm not going to test it out because old plastic. I just don't want to be the one that messes it up if it could be messed up. Everything else just feels super natural. And look at this. Nice armrest, a little bit of storage here. Would love to see it. When we put it in drive, it starts out in second gear like many Mercedes of this generation. There's a kickdown switch at the bottom of the pedal, so if you want it to be launching in first gear, you've got to really bury that throttle, or you put it in on the shifter. It's luxurious the way this delivers power. It really just winds out all the way through that rev range. And if you're wondering about visibility of this dashboard, yes, this steering wheel does not raise up and down. So your limited visibility of this is pretty much equal to my limited visibility of this. But let me get back in the throttle. Thankfully, they also upgraded the brakes on this car, so it does a pretty good job of bringing that speed back down. This does have a recirculating ball steering system, similar to that of the E39 M5, but it has reasonable feel. I actually really like the weight of this, and I feel like I'm getting enough tactility through the road. Also, a recirculating ball steering system isn't a bad thing on a luxury car. It actually does kind of make it feel a little more luxurious. Takes some of the edge off of it. The Recaros are cozy. They're not too tight, although I'm pretty slim, so if you're a larger person, they might actually be tight. And they've got pretty surprisingly big side bolsters for a car like this in its time. But the way this feels constructed, it's just so high quality. And it was expensive in its time. It was over $80,000 when it was new in 1992. That's so much money today. That is like Bentley money. That's crazy. And that's why when you see Lexus come into town with the LS, that kind of spells a big ruh-roh for the Mercedes crew. is collect speed gracefully. I kind of love the second gear rollout, honestly, because it has enough torque to do it. So there's not any jolt. It just takes you to highway speeds at once. Even the blinker stocks feel solid. Everything about this car, nothing feels cheap. Everything feels like it was designed to last a long time. You know, when you think they don't make them like they used to, think of this car. Everything you touch does feel like it's meant to exist for a long time. If you dare to be skeptical about attention to detail, in addition to these visors, you get this little guy that covers up the sun that comes above the rear view mirror. I mean, it's just little things that really go a long way in letting you know that designers were thoughtful and that penny pinching wasn't really a thing. I mean, I'm sure they had constraints, but financially, there's a lot in this car that they clearly just said, no, do it. Just do it. I mean, they charged money for it, obviously. You had to pay out quite a bit for these things. But look at this. These are ugly bumps that I always have to go impossibly slow over in sports cars. One thing I do miss about cars of this era is just the seating position, because the door sills are below me. I can see everything around me. There's just glass. So I'm in this really nice greenhouse where I'm not lacking any visibility. I understand that new cars can't really do this due to safety constraints, but I will say driving in this setting is better. As an occasionally jaded car reviewer, it is really refreshing to get back into a car that seemingly just focuses on its driver, its passengers, and the driving experience. I am damped from only what I need to be damped from. There's no screens that I have to look at, nothing that my fingerprints are gonna get on. There's no piano black here. And everything ergonomically is very straightforward, from the seats here to having my window switches right in the center. All of these little things just add up to a really easy experience. You don't have to explain how to drive this car to anyone. What I like about this too is that the steering weight is a little heavy for modern standards, and my E39 M5 is the same way. I think every time I get into my M5, I'm shocked at, wow, that's actually not a very light steering rack, which it should be this way. But modern luxury cars have kind of swindled us with ease of driving because they do take away the effort in the steering. So when you get in this, you do feel like you've got to muscle it just a tad, not a lot, but enough that you're like, yes, I am in charge. I'm driving this car. Similarly to a Bentley or a Rolls-Royce, the powertrain sort of disappears behind the car. It's not shouty, it's not trying to bark in your face to tell you that it's aggressive and wild. It's subdued even when you get it out to redline. Sure, you get the sound of a V8, but it's never going to be intrusive, and it's never going to be ostentatious or overwhelm the experience. The experience is the speed. Always want to be careful around a blind corner because you never know if A, someone else is coming, but B, if there's another cyclist and someone else coming. That's when you run into some serious interaction with other vehicles. I wasn't privy to this car when it came out. I was too young and my family isn't wealthy. We were not Mercedes-Benz people. I learned about this car later in life. And the story has everything because it's not just a phenomenal car with great engineering. It's a car with a story that shows what happened during some of the downtimes in Porsche. You know, Porsche was taking on these collaborative efforts with Audi in the RS2 and Mercedes with this 500e in order to pay their bills. I mean, this was dire straits for them at the time. And it's cool that you could see pictures of a lot with a 500e, an Audi RS2, and a 911. All coming off of assembly lines. So of course it's a great story for historians because it shows the competition with the Japanese, it shows collaboration with Porsche, it shows what these car companies were capable of from an engineering perspective, and when they were constrained by production, they had answers to those problems. But in addition to that, in 2025, it's still a great product. This is still a good car to drive. Now, I know they're not all as fresh and good and juicy as this ex-Seinfeld 500e with less than 17,000 miles on the clock. But if you were to take a sports sedan that captured a piece of the 90s and still was enjoyable to drive today, that seems very difficult to do. And this car really encapsulates that. I think anyone who gets into one of these today, if it's well sorted, is going to want to keep driving it, is going to realize that this isn't even cumbersome. The only thing it lacks is Apple CarPlay. And you know what? That is a bonus. It's such a joy to get in a car that is focused on driving, that just has ergonomic buttons. I don't have to look for anything. So thank you so much for joining me on this drive of the 500e. Thanks to Bond Group for tossing me the keys. I'm a little bummed it's going to leave the stable because this is a good one, but whoever gets it next is going to be in for a real treat because this has been properly maintained and it's so dialed. Thank you guys so much for watching, liking, commenting, and subscribing. Don't forget to respect the drive, and I'll see you in the next one. Unfortunately, it really does feel like we're saying goodbye to the sedan. Ahead of me is a new Honda Accord. There's very few of these types of cars available anymore. Everyone's moved to SUVs. They're all doing mid-size SUVs. So ordinary people aren't jumping in on the bandwagon anymore, and having a luxury sedan is now almost like a financial mistake for these big car companies because who would buy it?